again to Business and Technology in Tennessee, a podcast brought to you by InfoSystems. I'm Josh Davis, Marketing Director at InfoSystems, and with me today as a special guest is David Gaston from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And David, for fear that I'm going to butcher your job title again, I'll let you do a quick introduction.
Hey, thanks so much, Josh. Great to be here. David Gaston with Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I'm the Senior Director of our ProLiant server business here in North America. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so for the listeners out there, we've sort of recorded some back-to-back episodes of the podcast today. We participated in an event with Chattanooga Technology Council here at the Chattanooga Library, and we are recording all of these episodes on site at the library. Episodes 8 and 9, both recorded in Chattanooga Library's recording studio, which is wonderful. I think you heard me gush about it if you listened to our previous episode with Carla Askenaz from the Chattanooga Technology Council. But this is a cool setup. It's making me rethink how I want to do my podcasts moving forward, because the InfoSystems setup in our conference room, not that there's anything wrong with it, but this just kind of has a cool feel to it, being in the library, downtown Chattanooga, recording studio, all this cool looking equipment around me. So maybe I'm going to make a change moving forward. But anyway, so to get to today's topic, we're going to talk about Hewlett Packard Enterprise, which is one of the business partners that InfoSystems has aligned with to help our customers deploy reliable technology solutions. As a multi-vendor IT company, InfoSystems maintains relationships and does a lot of business with a lot of different companies out there. And HPE is definitely a very fantastic partner of ours, and it seems like a growing relationship, which is encouraging. And so, David, before we really get into talking about HPE's technology and initiatives and things like that, which will be sort of the bulk of what we talk about today, maybe just talk real quick about what has been your experience today, because this is probably, you and Clay spent some time together out in Park City.
My first time visiting InfoSystems.
Yeah, first time visiting on premise today. What's your initial impressions of InfoSystems just from the time you've spent with Clay at one of your partner events and being on site with us here today?
Yeah, it's been great getting here. I mean, we have meetings around the country with different IT leaders, and as you know, Hewlett Packard Enterprise is very channel partner centric. We go to market with partners like InfoSystems every day. That is the core of our go-to-market strategy. Mm-hmm. But after meeting with Clay a couple months ago, he invited me to come visit. So thrilled to be here. Spending time with InfoSystems, you can really tell they are the type of partner that is investing for the future and that HPE really values going to market with. Yeah. Obviously, you're making the investment in the facilities and your people. I think I even heard from one of your sales leaders that you're actually doing some hiring, which is good to see in this environment. Yeah. But your strategy, clearly you're reinventing the company. Yeah. Clay and meeting with Scott and Robert and the leadership team. Clearly, they're reinventing the company to a hybrid IT strategy with your cloud strategy, and we look forward to being a big part of that. But so that's quick initial perception of where InfoSystems is going. But I also am equally impressed with commitment to the business community here in Chattanooga and Eastern Tennessee and the regional area. It's very easy to be busy and not make the time to invest in activities like this. Yeah. And this is what keeps the community going. Of course, you wouldn't do it if it wasn't good for your business, and sure. I'm sure this will be good for your business, but you're also helping the community grow, helping Chattanooga grow, helping the local businesses do well together.
Yeah, thank you.
And you were not doing a sales pitch up there today. I mean, you were actually you're talking about the industry, and that was good to see.
Yeah, I definitely don't like to be too salesy, and maybe that's why I ended up in marketing. I can definitely apply, what's I guess commonly referred to as the marketing fluff or polish or whatever to messaging, the way we communicate with the business community. But there's a difference, in my opinion, on communicating effectively and being a little too salesy or too pushy. And InfoSystems as a company always would fault in the not too salesy direction, maybe even at some points to our detriment, because we could be way more aggressive, and I know companies that are. But enough about sales tactics and marketing and stuff like that. I really do want to spend a lot of time talking about HPE and your top initiatives right now. Can you just begin maybe by talking about what are your customers' top priorities right now? What are you hearing out of the marketplace that customers are really focusing on and need from technology vendors, major companies like HPE?
Great question, and thanks for phrasing it that way. I'm at the Hewlett Packard Enterprise facility down in Houston, Texas, which is a great hub of innovation for HPE, and we bring a lot of customers in there to our briefing centers to do customer briefing, get a lot of feedback, a lot of validation of our strategy, but also a lot of feedback on where customers need the industry to go and where they need HPE to be investing with them. So, it's been interesting how customer needs have evolved over the years. I mean, you and I have both been doing this a while. I've been doing it a little bit longer than you, but we've been doing it a while. And you've heard people talk about high availability and reliability as being absolutely critical. And then and then you go, of course, performance and scalability and modernization, consolidation, all trends we've been dealing with. But there's one that's really risen to the fore, and I'm sure everyone out there is saying, David, you missed one, and it's security. I mean, absolutely, security is the overriding top concern everyone we talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked this question, and over the last year, no one's challenging me. No one said, yeah, that's important, but. Because if they say, yeah, that's important, but, they're probably missing something. Yeah. And I got some other bigger issues. But so it's been security. And one of the great things about working for a high-tech company like Hewlett Packard Enterprise is the commitment we have towards R&D and innovation. And as I was mentioning, I'm down in Houston where all these engineers are, where the labs are, the people that are developing the software, developing the firmware, developing the next generation. We'll talk about we're on Gen 10 servers, but people are already working on Gen 11. Working with vendors like Intel and AMD and Microsoft and Red Hat and others, moving the industry forward.
When you were talking about being in the midst of the research and innovation hub at that office, I started thinking about do you remember that commercial that Intel put on TV a few years back where the premise was our rock stars are a little different, and you've got the IT guy who marches into the room and everybody's just, and they're high-fiving him and asking for autographs and all of this stuff. So is that how it works at HPE?
Oh, we do have a couple of people who can carry a tune, but realistically, the rock stars are those who develop the industry. A story I tell, and it's a few years before I joined what was then Compaq, by the way, down in Houston. For those who've been doing it a while, Compaq Computer, HPE, acquired Compaq. But when I joined, it was right about 6 years after Compaq, working with Intel, really developed the first x86 server. So the people that developed and defined the x86 server industry and kept on innovating were right there in that same facility. And some of those people move up to more senior careers, move out in the industry, but it's that legacy of innovation driving the industry that's been just fascinating. And we love taking our best and brightest customers into those labs where they talk about the futures. And yes, these are the people that are deep in the technology, that had no intention of having sales careers. They really wanted to keep on innovating and driving and doing what's best for the customers. That's one thing that I think will always keep HPE strong is that level of passion and that commitment. I mean, it's what Meg Whitman brought to Hewlett Packard and then Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and now Antonio Neri's carrying on, is the commitment to R&D that's going to keep driving the industry forward.
Now, you mentioned security as being that top focus right now with the innovation, or at least one of the top areas of focus with innovation. So are you seeing that companies have a complete security strategy, or is there, where are the gaps right now? Where is the most innovation happening?
And I think we've all come to realize if you think you've figured out a complete security strategy, you're probably wrong.
Yeah.
There's probably a vulnerability you haven't uncovered yet. But we are all doing our best and spending time and our resources to make sure we have the most secure environments possible. So I think the industry has done a pretty good job, or at least is talking a lot about network security, application level security, OS, hypervisor level security. But one of the new, you can call it, vulnerable platforms, attack platforms, is attack surfaces, is really firmware.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a lot of examples of firmware that have been attacked. There was an oil company that was recently compromised and had 30,000 devices compromised because of a firmware attack. And the need to protect the firmware layer and have a multi-level security approach is absolutely critical, and that's what I'd love to spend some time kind of diving into that today. But
yeah.
I just I think it's one of my key messages, and I just want to drive some awareness for the importance of a complete security strategy end to end, including the firmware layer. As a matter of fact, when we rolled out our what we call Gen 10 security, or our firmware security strategy and products, we launched them with our Gen 10 servers. Mm-hmm. June of 17, we actually had the FBI on stage with us, and they were talking about and commending HPE for our focus on this area and how it is a very vulnerable attack surface, and we need to focus on that.
So real quick, for the listeners, because I would say a bulk of listeners for this podcast are going to be more of a business role rather than
Mm-hmm.
IT director or IT specialty or technician or engineer. Can you explain what an attack on firmware looks like to a business professional? Why does that need to be addressed? What happens?
So attack on the firmware, and if you think firmware boots up before the operating system boots up, before the processor boots up. So there are all those millions of lines of code that are executing before it gets to processor level security that Intel and some of our competitors talk about, and before it gets to the operating system level security and application level. So we're talking about the base firmware and the million lines of code and the firmware that's vulnerable. And there's so many ways to attack firmware. One is via a supply chain, products manufactured in what we'll call non-TAA compliant countries. Factory might have a vulnerability, or in the transportation, so not having a secure supply chain, like we spend so much focus on. Might get access to the system, and all it takes is a little clip. I mean, you get some physical access to the firmware, or frankly, there are unknown ways to get to the firmware,
Yeah.
People can hack through just a variety of online resources. If you get access to the system, drill down to the firmware, and we've really got to focus on detecting, and recovering the systems.
So a couple of questions come to mind based on that. One is, so I'm assuming when a server ships, when a brand new server ships, before any applications or anything are installed, it's coming with a base level of software already on there, which is the firmware.
Right.
And it's the manufacturer's responsibility to continually update that, which is, patches and maintenance and all of those things are released on a regular basis. So would that kind of be a correct assessment?
Yeah, and it's not only just to continue updating it, it's what you get out of the box too.
Mm-hmm.
So we architect our own firmware. Most of the other vendors in the industry actually buy some third-party firmware, and they've got they're relying on the confidence that that's done right. One of our largest competitors in the industry actually had to adjust their quarterly earnings because one of their large customers returned a bunch of systems, canceled an order because their this customer's development lab found out their firmware had been infected.
Wow.
And despite the vendor saying no, it's secure, we got it, don't worry, they couldn't validate that, and they actually ended up giving HPE some business, and but it really gets back to that R&D and the innovation we have in architecting our own firmware, and then having that secure supply chain to make sure it's there.
So is it, would you say that maybe the firmware layer has been neglected because?
Absolutely.
What is it why has it been neglected? Is it just that it wasn't expected that people could access that level, or what about it made it vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, it truly, it had not been understood and appreciated the vulnerability that was there. And it's all vendors, prior systems have this level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
So driving that awareness, I think I can quote Jason Shropshire from Infusion Points, which is one of the consultants we use, one of the security consultants we use. He actually compared what we're doing to what Bill Gates did in a famous internal Microsoft memo that goes back, I think it goes back to early 2000s, like 2002, something like that. He had he sent a memo out that talked about the importance and the vulnerability of operating system security within Windows at the time, and it totally changed the industry. It changed his company. Got Microsoft focused on, and now we know the amazing focus that Microsoft and others have on the OS level security. Well, this is what we're doing for firmware level security, is creating that awareness. We're first out of the chute. We believe we have about a two generation advantage, but we know our competitors will come out with something in the years to come. And by the way, the industry needs that, so we encourage that. But right now we're gonna drive this important differentiation.
Yeah, one thing I brought up in a previous podcast episode was the fact that, and this was an episode with our virtual CIO, Aaron Swan, who we do an IT Coach for Business Leaders podcast, and he brought up the fact that when a security breach happens, nobody wins.
Right.
Whether it's not like HPE is looking over at their competitors saying, "Ha ha, your system's failed," and somebody running your brand experienced a major hack. That nobody in the IT industry is cheering when something like that happens. So yes, I mean,
even if it's your competitor, you don't cheer because next one up, could be you.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, so I like the way you frame that in saying that even though HPE is first to the chute, developing this type of layered security at the firmware level, you would expect other companies to follow suit at some point, because everybody needs to address this.
It's needed.
And the more we can shut down as an IT industry in general, the more we can shut down cyber attacks, successful cyber attacks, maybe the better the environment will get for us all to conduct business. And money will be saved by everybody. So yeah.
And the statistics on cyber attacks are amazing. So every day data shows there's 720 million cyber attacks. Think about that. 720 million cyber attacks.
Unreal.
And then ransomware. We've all heard about friends firms, associates firms who've had a ransomware attack, or hopefully not your firm, our firm, but data shows that every 14 seconds there's another ransomware attack out there. And then you think about the cost of cybercrime. One data we've seen is that by the year 2021, so 3 years from now, the cost of cybercrime is going to be $6 trillion. That's trillion. So many ways to think about that number. One way we talk about it's a third of the GDP of the United States. I mean, so that's major. That's the cybercrime. The risk is out there, and that's why we've all got to be on our toes, be investing, but also leveraging investments from companies like HPE, who are doing this, and I'll talk about some other examples where this investment pays off, but just cannot overstate the importance of the focus here.
Yeah. So I mean, when you're talking about the baked-in protection of this generation of server infrastructures, do you have any real-world examples from working with customers that you could share about that?
Yeah, so the most common one that we hear talked about, I actually remember pretty vividly. It was I think it broke in the news on September 7th that this massive breach in the United States. A large credit firm that we're all familiar with their name, and without going into their corporate details too much, let's talk about what happened though. Mm-hmm. So we all hear about this huge credit breach that impacted somewhere north of 140 million Americans, and we hear about it on September 7th, and the details start leaking out. So, so what happened here? Well, actually, they were compromised in mid-May of 17. Okay, that's a long time ago, but mid-May. Well, they didn't know about they were attacked until the end of July. So you had from mid-May to end of July, the hackers, the criminals were in there doing who knows what with all that consumer data. And then to make this real, so then July, the company talks about it on September 7th, and then on September 15th, the CIO and CSO retire from the firm. Chief Security Officer and Chief Information Officer on September 15th retire from the firm. And then on September 26th, the CEO retires from the firm. Mm-hmm. Multi-billion-dollar impact to the firm. So now you think, okay, what happened? There've been a lot of, in this case, a lot of discussion and analysis into what happened. But the first question that I asked on that night was, hey, if they had HPE Gen 10 security, could this have been prevented? I mean, the obvious question. So it took us a little while to try to figure out really what happened and all that. Yeah. And the reality is, so we had a pretty strong opinion that if they had implemented some of our controls, this could have been prevented. But we didn't want to go out there, by ourselves and say that. So we went back to a consultant, this same Fusion Points organization, Jason Shropshire, and he said, really, if they had the NIST 800-53 controls that we've put in place with our servers, this could have been prevented. And we're like, okay, that's interesting. Can anyone have NIST controls? I mean, they're publicly available specs, the architectures you can implement. And the reality is HPE is the only firm that spent a year ahead of releasing the Gen 10 servers, developing the server storage networking architectures and validating them. We spent $500,000 doing this. It took a year to do it. Mm-hmm. And if those controls have been implemented, what we know is one of the largest hacks would not have happened. And by the way, you get access to all those controls, to the white papers and the information, the scripts for how to implement NIST 800-53 with your ProLiant Gen 10 servers. We and InfoSystems and partners like InfoSystems can help do this, can provide services to help you implement this. But the actual controls and the testing and the white paper and the best practices are all available with the purchase of the servers. And still today, here we are, months down the road, and no one else that we're aware of has implemented the same level of security.
Wow. Well, that says a lot. I mean, for the focus of HPE and the. I mean, honestly, to see a company the size of HPE reacting that fast to what's happening out there in the marketplace, maybe that's why some of the other companies haven't done it yet. It's not like you just snap your finger and these things are done. It takes investment, it takes time, it takes the right resources and skills. It takes a lot of cooperation from a lot of different people. So kudos to HPE for making that a focus and making it happen. So my kind of taking what you just said and leading into a next question, because you were talking about working with business partners like InfoSystems to help customers implement those types of solutions. Infrastructure modernization is a huge focus for lots of companies out there. That it's not like companies look forward to technology refresh cycles and I'll reference Aaron Swan, our VCIO again. He likes to say it's not like any of our customers have bags of cash sitting around that they just want to throw at technology solutions. But the understanding where we're at now is modernizing infrastructure is of utmost importance, because not only will the company be able to realize performance enhancements and be able to deliver services faster and change the culture of there's lots of benefits. But addressing security, like you said, nobody hears that and says, yeah, no, we're not so focused on that right now. So, how does InfoSystems, how can HPE and InfoSystems work to modernize infrastructure for customers here in our region?
Well, I think it starts with what we're doing right now. It starts with creating the awareness that there is a risk. One of the terms I don't like is commodity server. A lot of this industry has been commoditized from a pricing standpoint and some performance and availability standpoint, but then there's still a lot of differentiation. And to me, just creating the awareness that this level of differentiation is out there and you should be thinking about it and building into your strategy, that's where it starts. But then we also want to make it easier. So we want to make these platforms available, and we want to provide the incentives and support to help customers get there. Mm-hmm. Gosh, so much we're doing here, Josh. But I'll give one financial example of one way we can help. We actually have a very rich trade-in offer that's available. I know this podcast will live on, so what we're talking about now runs through our Q3. So that'll right now that'll be through July of 18, mm-hmm. But there'll be something that'll extend past that, I would imagine. But today, sure. Trade-in is $400. We'll give an end user customer $400 when they trade in an old server, an old HPE server, an old competitive server, and buy a new HPE Gen 10. That's available. Buying it through InfoSystems or other of HPE partners. Mm-hmm. And basically, all you do is you trade the server in and you buy a new HPE system and apply for the rebate and get the check from HPE. We give them a label to ship the box back, that kind of stuff, the old box back. But what we've done just recently is we've increased that to $650. So think about that. Nice. I mean, you can, we have plenty of servers out there that you start at a couple $1,000. Mm-hmm. $650 back is a good motivation, especially for maybe an 8-year-old server that's maybe being a web server, or maybe collecting dust in your closet. Sure. Just makes it a little bit easier. That's $650, by the way. The other $250 is when you buy the security software. We call it ILO Advanced Premium Security Edition. There's a mouthful for you. Yeah. APSE. Love these acronyms in the industry. But another $250 for that, so you get $650 back, and it makes it a little bit easier. I mean, I totally get it. It's not just financial. I mean, the effort and the services and the planning need to modernize your architecture are significant. That's why we're working with companies like InfoSystems to build out this cloud strategy, mm-hmm. this hybrid IT strategy, and we're working with you to do more of that with HPE on Gen 10, so customers will get this kind of an architecture built in with InfoSystems.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this podcast, I don't think there's any possible way you don't know about InfoSystems cloud strategy, because right. We talk about it all the time. But yeah, I mean, the whole reason we're investing in being able to deliver our own managed cloud services is because we know the way forward. And we heard it at today's Chattanooga Technology Council event multiple times from basically everybody in attendance, that hybrid IT, hybrid cloud is the way forward. Nobody's going to jump 100% and say, hey, it doesn't make sense for me ever to own anything again. And nobody's ever going to say, you know what, cloud is not ever going to be an option. I want to own everything for perpetuity. Smart people are going to move forward and weigh out all options. And so the fact that companies like InfoSystems, working with partners like HPE and our other partners, are able to deliver those options in a very well thought out, well constructed, cost-effective way. We're just doing a service for our customers, because that's what they want, is that option. And they don't have the time. We heard that today as well. They don't have the time and resources to figure it all out on their own. When I asked a question to the panel about cloud skills on their current IT staff, or if they were looking to hire or train for cloud-specific skills, the answer we got back was, hey man, we're keeping the lights on.
Yep.
We're running our company every day. We don't necessarily have time to, train and invest and explore every single new technology and thing that, that's coming down the pike and in the IT ecosphere. So they look to us, companies like InfoSystems, the regional IT partner and service provider, to be the ones, because we always have, and I truly appreciate Clay Hales, the owner of InfoSystems, for making that a cornerstone of our company from the very beginning, was that we were going to have highly trained, certified professionals on staff, because we know that's a resource that our customers are going to need, and something that they can't really do themselves as effectively as we can. So a large percentage of our engineers' time and a large cost of InfoSystems, internal cost, is continued training and certification on these types of new technologies that are coming out. So, and I know we had a meeting this morning with some of InfoSystems leadership, Clay, Scott, Robert. We were all in that meeting and talking about the path forward with HPE, and the fact that we see you guys as a company that aligns culturally with InfoSystems, and technology-wise with some of the things we're doing in our own hosting pod and our cloud services. So it's just exciting to be a part of. For me, honestly, it's really exciting to be a part of this whole time within our company, where this huge shift in the industry is happening, where cloud is becoming a real thing, and companies are really making huge leaps forward in their IT infrastructure. And if you look at the downtime, I bet if you measured the downtime at a company now that has made the right investments in IT versus 5, 10, 15 years ago, you're going to see a huge difference. So and a lot of that is because they're able to offload a lot of their requirements to companies like us, and because companies like HPE, you guys are continuing to innovate in those research and innovation centers like you have. And
it wasn't fascinating today when we had all those IT leaders and the IT leaders on stage, when questions were asked about cloud versus hybrid versus on-prem. As we talked earlier, it used to be there'd be a couple hands that would go up and say, our long-term strategy is to get 100% to the cloud. Yeah. And you might be asking, well, if that's your strategy, why aren't you further? And you could ask questions, and they're having challenges. Nobody said that. Yeah. They were to an organization and diverse, large, mid-sized, different industries, organizations, talked hybrid. Nobody's all-prem either, by the way. It's really finding that right mix of on-premise, cloud in a hybrid IT infrastructure. They all talk about that right mix type strategy. Even going out 3 to 5 years being so key, so key to them. And actually, talking about this, you mentioned, reminded me of something that Clay and the team from InfoSystems were talking about today. As you do take advantage of some of the cloud strategies that you're providing, you don't have that same level of lock-in. Really no charge to get it back off the cloud and facilitating getting it back to an on-premise, and not the lock-in there. That's a key differentiator that the market needs. Yeah, the market needs. I like I think it was Clay's terminology. I can't remember if it was Clay or Scott. He's going to love this as we're talking about him, by the way. Hopefully they don't mind. I talk about him all the time. Okay. But it's just because I like working with those guys so much. But I loved his terminology about we're intentionally not building an environment that will handcuff our customers to us. And that's kind of counterintuitive, because you would talk to a lot of IT companies out there. Look at Facebook. Now that all of this stuff has come to light about, the hacking at Facebook, the scraping of data, and their strategy was, everything they did was to lock you into their platform and make you spend more time on their. I'd say if you talk to almost all tech startups and IT providers, it's almost like their focus should be on, I want to tether these customers to my company so that they can never leave. We think that's
completely the opposite of what should happen. We want to make an environment where, if people are not happy or satisfied, or if there's a better solution, whatever the reason is, we don't want to bind anybody into our environment. We want to make it as easy for them to exit as possible. But our whole focus while they're in our cloud hosting environment would be make sure we're delivering a service that they don't want to leave. Kind of a paradigm shift there.
I mean, that's really one of the definitions of industry standard servers.
Yeah.
Is that ability you can take advantage of platforms from other vendors or technologies from other vendors, but it is what we're doing, what you're doing is providing that differentiation, that added value, that making hybrid IT simple, providing that unique management capability that provides the compelling value add for our customers that will drive that loyalty, and you're seeing that, and we're seeing that with the growth in both of our businesses.
Yeah. So I guess that's probably a pretty good place to, I don't want to drag although there's plenty of other places I could take the conversation, and this has been a fantastic episode content-wise, but I just want to thank you. It's been great spending time with you today through the Technology Council event, meeting together at InfoSystems headquarters, podcasting together, and we're still going to go do a happy hour event out at STIR where some other business leaders and IT professionals from our area can come meet and greet, network with you and our team, and we love doing events like that are open to the community to participate in. But this has just been a great day, hopefully equally as gratifying for you as it has been for me and for the InfoSystems team. So just sincere thanks on coming and spending time with us today.
Yeah. Thank you to InfoSystems, the great public library here, and I look forward to doing business together and working with some more of your customers. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, David.